All right, everyone, get ready to polish your manners and dust off some old school charm because today's episode is a real treat. I am joined by the fabulous Elise McVeigh, etiquette coach extraordinaire, for a lively chat that's equal parts fun and fascinating. We are diving into the world of manners. Think cringeworthy etiquette newbie mistakes to avoid and timeless practices we're desperately needing to bring back. Stick around to find out which faux pas might be sabotaging your social game and why a little vintage courtesy could be your secret weapon. Elise, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, Elise, in 30 seconds, you got to tell us what's the one etiquette rule you see broken every day that makes you cringe?
Probably how people hold their utensils. Very few people know anymore how to hold their utensils, and it just drives me crazy.
Now we're going to have to go get a utensil.
So
I'm going to need John, Isaiah, somebody to go, utensils, please, on the set. Because I guarantee that I've probably broken that rule once or twice. I got to say, I don't get nervous interviewing my guests, but around here, I told everybody who I had coming on today, what you did, and everyone's been, checking around to see what kind of rules we're breaking, and we're probably breaking a lot that we don't even know.
I'm not judging you, I promise.
Well, I'm excited to jump into this today with you. I think we can have a lot of fun with this conversation. So why don't you just right out of the gate, tell us how you got into an industry like this and who you primarily focus on as your clients.
So I wrote a book a few years ago, and I realized when I was little, my favorite books were The Polite Elephant and a Raggedy Ann and Andy book that was like, please, thank you, I love you. And so I think I've just always been about etiquette. But how I got into it was when my third son was born, I wanted to get out of the house. So I had a friend who was a public speaker, and I said, I would love to do that. She said, okay, just pick some topics. So etiquette and getting organized were the two topics that really stuck. So I was giving a talk, an etiquette talk, and someone said, you should do a kids camp. Okay, I'm a journalist. I'm not a teacher. Why? I said, that's a great idea. I don't know. But I had like 7 kids. 2 were mine. I think 2 were my sisters. I borrowed a few, and we had a class. And then I just started writing curriculum for kids. And the way that my program works, we start at pre-K and we have different levels. So we do teach college students and adults, but it just seems like parents are always looking to do something with their kids, and etiquette is obviously very important to them.
All right, we have our silverware. Where producer John, since this is the biggest thing that makes you cringe.
Okay. All right, so I'll sort of show you. So first of all, people do not set the table correctly. So it's a fork and a knife, and the blade always faces the plate, and then the spoon goes next to it, and then the cup up here. But what I see a lot of people, they'll hold a fork like this, or they'll cut over here, but it's just like this. I always tell kids the strength's in the pointer fingers. So you cut like this, and then you rest your knife, and then if you're right-handed, you have to switch hands. If you're left-handed, obviously like this, right-handed like this, and then eat, resting position, and then finished position. But also, European style is where you go like this. So I think people think that they're fancy and that they'll start American and then they'll eat like this, but then maybe they'll rest this way. You cannot combine the styles.
The number one thing that made me remember about the forks was actually that tip on the Titanic.
Yes, I always give that as an example. And now the kids are like, don't know what you're talking about. What is that movie? Because they're little, they've never seen it. But yes, I always say,
multiple forks,
start on the outside, work your way in. If you don't know what's going on, it never fails. You just start on the outside. Because part of the problem is servers in restaurants, they're not trained anymore. Actually, I was a server in college and no one trained me. I just was into etiquette, so I knew what to do. But I had to sort of tell the other servers how it went. And if no one's training them, a common thing that a lot of servers do, they'll take your plate as soon as you're finished. You need to take it as soon as everybody's finished, but no one's told them that.
You don't have to sit there with a knife
I
and a
don't
fork
mind.
by you the rest of the time.
I
Let's
have
give that
silverware
to...
around all the time, so it's okay. But I will give it back. Thank you.
So, I mean, that kind of answered. Maybe that's your. Maybe this is going to answer that question, but maybe you have something else. But what is the sneakiest etiquette rule most people break without even knowing it?
Gosh, these days there are so many things with technology. I would say just people being on their phone. They know they should not be on their phone at certain times. I just think that as a society, we can't help ourselves. We're always looking at our phone. And sometimes I just stop talking because I'm like, are you really listening to me? You're probably not. But I just think it's just basic instinct now. We're all just like, okay, what am I missing? What am I doing? Yeah, I'm listening. But you really can't. I mean, women are supposedly good at multitasking, but you really cannot focus on what someone's saying 100% while looking at your phone.
I think that lost art of conversation is something that's definitely missing in our society. Do you do classes specifically tailored towards dinner table conversation or just conversation in general?
Yes.
When does that start?
Lesson 5 or 6 is, no, lesson 5 is conversations. So originally, I started in 2003. Originally, that was not a thing. Fast forward 7-8 years, I started getting phone calls a lot of parents saying, my child does not know how to talk to adults. And now I'm seeing they don't even know how to talk to one another. And COVID sure did not help the situation. They just don't know what to say. That term socially awkward that we use all the time now, that didn't seem to be a term 20 years ago when I started. But so many people now, they just are baffled of what to say, or they say something that's inappropriate, or they'll ask you something that you're thinking, okay, why are you asking me that? That's really none of your business.
Is it still, do you still teach kids to say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir?
I do. I'll say to them, also, we talk about tone of voice. So I'll give an example. I'll say, what if I ask one of my sons to empty the dishwasher and they say, yeah. I said, okay, they agreed to do it, but they're not saying it in a positive way. It's nice to always say yes, yes, ma'am, or yes, sir is even better.
Okay, I love it. And I don't know if you noticed this, but my producer, Isaiah, still says yes, ma'am, even to me. I tell him to stop it, but maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should maybe I should accept he is using good manners, and it obviously is very impressive to me.
Yes.
But it makes me feel old. So
a lot of people say that.
So what do you say to the people who are like we are playing a part in fostering bad etiquette and bad manners if we don't accept it? Is that right?
Right. So so just go. I
make my kids say it.
But I know. Nope, you have to go with it.
Okay.
But that is a common comment. People will say, that makes me feel old.
Yeah, it does.
But also as teachers, I know in so where I live, it's Mr. and Mrs. and their last name. Some kids, some school districts, they can say Miss Elise. So if I have someone who'll say, oh, Miss Elise, I'll say it's Mrs. McVeigh in the most polite way that I can.
There you go. Okay, so you're at a dinner party.
Okay.
We all got to know this. What is the one thing that screams, I have no manners, louder than a foghorn?
First of all, no one likes to eat with me. So if anyone I know is watching this, please know I'm not judging you. However, I would say people who, once again, they don't know what to do with their utensils, that they will put them back on the table, or they'll have their knife just sort of like the tip of it is on the edge of the plate. I have a thing about chargers, dinner chargers. Okay. Someone came to my house and mistook it for a plate. And so I was like, wait a second. And I started saying, why didn't you use it? And my husband's like, And I'm like, okay. It killed me to eat on our chargers. But what else was I going to do? Because you don't want to make the other person feel uncomfortable when they do something wrong. So I the person who did it just said, oh, is this not the plate you want me to use? Oh, yes, of course it is.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Do you do a full table set every night for dinner?
No,
or
I
only
don't.
for formal occasions?
Formal occasions. Or for example, if my sons don't live with me any longer. So if they're coming over, we'll sit at the table. And the funny thing is when they were little, sometimes we'd sit at the kitchen bar for dinner, but most of the time we'd sit at the table and they'd like, oh, do we have to go to the table? But then once we get them there, they wouldn't shut up. I mean, they just would talk and talk and talk. And I'd say, don't you have homework? Don't you have something to do? But kids, as much as they complain about, they really like sitting down at the table as a family.
They do.
And I think adults do too. If we have people over, they're like, oh, we're sitting at the table. How nice. And they really enjoy it.
We've learned that we have this little trick now. My kids are 3 and 4. I just turned 5, actually. So we turn the lights off. We don't have, the overhead fluorescent lighting at the dinner table, but we light a candle.
Oh,
and we have
that's
learned
nice.
that what we do is a game called Whoever Has the Candle Has the Floor. And so we
Smart.
pass the candle to the kid. We ask them a question, and they won't stop talking.
Right.
They
It's
will
so
answer
funny.
everything that they would never answer in the car, that they would never
Yes.
answer any other time of day, and they won't stop talking. And we have found that it is the most precious time with our family because we learn everything about their day
It is.
there. Yeah.
It's great because they get in the car. So what'd you learn today? Nothing.
Nothing. Did you have a good day? Yeah.
That's right. That's
Yes,
about
ma'am.
it.
Yes.
But that's, now do you have boys or girls?
A boy and a girl.
Oh, okay. And is she more talkative than him?
No, actually, he loves it. He
Interesting.
loves to start it off, but
Okay.
that's the main time. It's at the dinner table when we, are extremely intentional about getting them to open up and talk. So
That's great.
all right, so a lot of people weighed in on this, and they want to know, what is one etiquette tip that you've taught the ultra wealthy that us regular folks would never guess?
I would say when I introduced the lesson on airplane manners, the kids that I was teaching, I'd say things like, don't get up and walk around and they just looked at me, and I finally said, do you fly private? Like, yeah. Oh, okay. So things like that come up. So now when I have a group and I'm teaching, I'll say, this is what a commercial airplane is. It means people you don't know are on the airplane, oh, no, I fly private sometimes. Well, I'm always out. They'll sort of give different answers.
Yeah.
Kids are very honest.
Yes.
But I would say things like that will come up. I one time had a kid who said that his parent was going to present it to the Pope. So I started looking up stuff. And so when the mom came, I'm like, I heard your husband's getting presented to the Pope. Okay. Do you know that this and this and this?
Oh, wow. So you do like private lessons too.
I also
for
do
people.
private lessons. Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
that is incredible to know because
Yes.
you're absolutely right. There, especially when you start talking about etiquette in other countries. I mean, that's a whole
Yes.
different ballgame.
Right. But just being presented to the
Yeah.
Pope, what you say. One of the most interesting private lessons I did was a kid who was in 8th grade trying to get into a certain boarding school because of hockey. And so I had to, remind him, okay, not everyone has this privilege. Because I think one of the answers he gave, so I maybe said something like, well, what if the interviewer says, are you going to be scared that you're not near your parents or whatever? And I think he said something like, well, I can go home, whenever I want. I said, well, not everyone can afford that. So let's not say it that way. So sometimes people are especially kids, in a position of privilege that they don't understand that. So we have to explain, not everyone does this or that.
And interesting. And I want to make a point to that too. I mean, it's not just the ultra wealthy or the privileged that needs to be having manners. We can all benefit.
Everyone, especially
in our society would benefit
Yes.
from this.
Yes. I mean, yeah, one thing, airplanes, just restaurants, everything.
So I'm interested to know, what is the weirdest etiquette tip from history that you would secretly like to see us bring back?
That's a tough one. Okay, I don't know why this isn't done anymore, and I'm on my husband all the time. He's not going along with me. Why don't men stand up when women leave the table? And maybe your husband does. Very few men do that. And those who do, I'm like, oh, what a gentleman. Oh my gosh. But I try to tell kids to do that. Actually, I taught that in a class, and a little boy said, last night I did that because you said to. It was like a week-long camp. So the second day, he's like, and my mom said, why are you standing? And he said, I explained it to her because she was getting up from the table. She said, oh, okay, that's fine. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I hope I didn't get you in trouble. But yeah, I try to even tell the little kids, stand up is a sign of respect. And I know that, and I've had college students say, well, I try to open the door for a girl and she gets all bent out of shape. And I'll say, well, tell her you open the door for everyone. And it's not just because she's female. And maybe think about, do you want to go out with her again? Right?
Yeah.
If someone's going to get that bent out of shape. But definitely I would say, back to the original question, I like it when men used to stand up for women when they would get up from the table. And then when they come back.
I love that. Speaking of living in a modern age, in a digital age, texting is everywhere. What's the one phone habit that's killing politeness?
I would say a lot of younger people don't understand once they go to the workforce that texting is not always acceptable and text speak is not acceptable. So a lot of professors even will say, I get these emails and it's all in text speak. Or they don't understand, a lot of younger people don't understand who enter the workforce. This is when you text. This is when you email. This is when you pick up the phone and call someone. I think that they're really struggling with that. So that's something that we teach all the time. And maybe as the millennials, have gotten older and maybe now they think it's okay. I don't know. But you still are going to have people my age who will say, that's not appropriate to text me. You needed to write an email, or this is a serious subject. You should have just picked up the phone.
Have you been shocked to see that emojis have now become an acceptable form of communication in professional environments?
Yes, I don't understand, but yes, it's been interesting.
Is there an element where there are certain rules within etiquette that will never change, but then you do see the value in adapting certain pieces of etiquette to the day and the time, like the emoji piece, or do you think that should just never be acceptable?
I think a lot of it is the relationship you have with the person. For example, I am friendly with my instructors, and we usually become friends. And if I send an emoji, okay, they might send one to me. That's fine. But if it was someone probably who's younger than I am, an instructor, I'll have maybe a graduate student or someone who's just out of college, who's a teacher and teaching for me part-time. They call me Mrs. McVeigh. I might let them. I might say, call me Elise, but I'm like, yeah, they should probably call me Mrs. McVeigh. And I'm probably not going to send like a kissy face emoji like, oh, thanks, you did a great job. I just would say, thank you, great job.
Yeah.
End of story.
Oh, that goes into just a whole, wasn't it a kissy face emoji? I'm like, then that goes into taking things out of context, but then the certain ages may not take those things out in the right context. It's just all the lines have gotten blurred these days with so many of these things. Okay, let's talk about dating. You did say, you've got these older college age students or people that are going out on a date. What's the subtle etiquette trick to impress without looking like you're trying?
So, I do a whole thing on dating and how to meet the parents. But I would say another thing it's about sort of similar to the standing, open up someone's door. That would be nice. Because I know we always have the remote, but just open up their door. So, for example, my son was at homecoming, and I was having to drive the young lady home. He wasn't driving yet. And so she, gets out of the car, and I'm like, wait. I'm like, Reagan, get up, go follow her, and get up to the door,
Yeah.
And you should have opened her car door, but she wouldn't have given him enough time anyway. Then they're standing there and he's like, okay, bye. And I'm like, no, you have to make sure that she gets in the door safely. And he said, well, what if she thought I was trying to kiss her? I said, okay, so just take a few steps back. You don't have to be on the porch, but maybe on a step. So at least the mother comes to the door and knows that you care that her daughter got in safely without her thinking that you're making a move on her. So you have to, I guess, just sort of think, how is a young person thinking? But I think it's great and also I've given speeches to high schoolers. I'll say, okay, here a girl comes down the stairs, let's say you're going to a dance, hair, makeup, clothes, spray tan, whole thing. I said, she's obsessed over her outfit. She's consulted with 5 friends and her mom. You need to say, you look really pretty. Then you need to, of course, be polite to the parents. We go through all that. But then, open her door. You need to talk to her at the restaurant. They're just things that don't occur to younger people. And now I would say as they're young adults dating, it probably still is not occurring to them.
I think you're right, because I think that none of this technically is instinctual to people. I think it's safe to say that we all would benefit from taking a course or getting back to this place where we have to intentionally think about these things. It would make us a better society. And I think that the ones who are thinking about it are on like a higher level of thinking almost, because you're thinking in a different realm than everybody else around you.
Well, also, so I'm in my 50s. My parents, we sat down at the table every night, and not only did I learn good table manners, but what's appropriate to talk about. We'd have a guest over for dinner, so I knew when to say something, not say something, what to say. If I wouldn't have done that with my kids, I mean, now we're looking at several generations that have not sat down at the dinner table, and their parents come to people like me because they're like, I never learned any of this, or they think they've done, back to setting the table. They're like, oh, my grandmother always showed me how to set the table, and then they do it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I thought you would know better. This is wrong. And I just don't think people know that anymore. We just have several generations that they're very lost.
Yeah.
It's not instinctual.
Well, so before we, started recording this, we were discussing weddings, and you must be getting a lot of, questions about wedding etiquette. What's the rudest thing that people do at weddings that drive you up the wall?
I would say as guests, they don't RSVP. That is just so common that people have to call them and say, it's a sit-down dinner, or we're just wondering if you're coming. And then the other rude thing is they say that they are coming, and then they just blow it off.
How about babies at weddings? Can we please talk about this? This has become quite controversial for the people who are saying no babies allowed at a wedding. Is that right? Is that wrong? What are your thoughts on that?
When someone addresses an invitation, if it says to Mr. and Mrs. Daniel McVeigh, then that means only my husband and I are invited. If it says the McVeigh family, that means our kids are allowed to come. If I had a baby, let's say that I was breastfeeding and I had to do that, I think what I would do is I would have my mom, or if I had a nanny, I would say, okay, bring me the baby at this time. I'll go into the whatever space, breastfeed them, give the baby back to you, and then enjoy the evening. Do
you think it's rude for the bride to suggest that you can't bring babies or children to their wedding?
That's a tricky one. I think that people should know that they shouldn't bring that. And I remember my mom, she got remarried and she had a very nice second wedding, and her mother wanted to put on the invitation adult reception. And she said, no, I think that that's rude. Well, sure enough, someone that she knew, they brought their 2 kids, and it was like a 7-course meal. It was very lavish. And she thought, oh my gosh, my poor parents are paying for this again. So it's a tricky situation. I would hope that people would know that. Or here's something I've seen someone do. It was an Indian wedding, and it's usually a 3-day event. So we go to the main event, which is the actual ceremony, and the bride had childcare. And so the people tried to walk in with their child, and they said, oh, we have childcare over here.
I've started to see that more and more.
So I think that that's a wise idea.
Okay. All right. In the same lane, asking about weddings. Is it acceptable when you're on a 3rd, 4th wedding to expect your friends to give you another gift?
So etiquette's, I don't think you should ever expect a gift. I think it's just nice that people give you gifts. But I guess I'd say, what is the circumstance? What is the relationship with the person? And also, where are they in life? If they're 23 and it happens to be their 3rd marriage, they probably need a gift. But if they're 40, 45, they probably have been living on their own, and they probably do not need a gift.
Yeah.
And I would say as a bride and groom, it's more than appropriate to say no gifts, please. And if you ever see no gifts, please, that means do not bring a gift.
Thank you. Because
Right?
what about
Yes.
at the birthday parties
Yes, I was about to
all
say.
no gifts,
gifts.
please, and everyone shows up with a gift except the one person that followed the instructions.
Exactly.
It is so awkward.
It is. And I've done that. When my kids were little, I remember going to parties, pulling up, and I see people walking in with gifts, and I'm panicking. And I look at the invitation, I'm like, okay, I'm right. It says no gifts. And if someone says that, they have a good reason for it.
Right.
Either their children have so much stuff, or maybe they don't want to write thank you notes. Sometimes I think, please don't bring me a gift because, if I'm in the hospital ever, I don't want to tell anyone because I don't want them doing anything for me because I have to write them a thank you note. Maybe I just don't want to.
Yeah.
But seriously, if it says no gifts, you need to. Good etiquette is to respect that. And as you said, follow the instructions.
There you go. Thank you notes is going to be a whole nother topic of conversation
Yes.
in this day and age. Okay, I want to know, this is a personal question for you. I
Okay.
want to know, what is one etiquette mistake that you've personally made that still haunts you to this day?
I did not write a thank you note to my confirmation sponsor in 9th grade. It still haunts me. I remember what she got me, and then I remember when I saw her again, and it was like at a class reunion, like I went over there, and I said something to the daughter. She's like, what? And I'm sure this mom didn't even remember that she was my confirmation sponsor, but it still haunts me to this day. I did not write her a thank you note.
Wow. I mean, oh gosh, yeah, I have so many questions about the thank you notes in this day and age. We'll have you back. We're going to have you back to do this more, or people can just sign up for your course.
They can sign up for my course.
That
yes,
is,
either
and
way.
let's talk a little bit about that. So you're not age specific as far as like you only deal with children. Can you talk about some of your courses, the age groups? Just tell me all about it.
So usually, we'll go to school sometimes. So usually that's preschools or elementary schools. What I found is children who are in junior high or high school, they're not as enthused to come. I know that's shocking, but they're not like, yay, a manners class. This will be fun. And so we don't really offer that as a group, but we'll say to people, if you can get about 12 people together, we are glad to do that.
Okay.
We've had, honestly, some nightmare situations where we've had maybe 12 7th grade boys. They're not very fun. They don't want to be there. I'm not cool. So I just don't know what to say.
Yeah.
But we do our best. If you think that your child would like some instruction, I think one-on-one in those cases are a lot better.
Sure. And do you find that the best success rates are when maybe families take the classes together so that it can be reinforced at home?
Yes, absolutely. But something I try to do to reinforce it at home, anyone who takes a class, I'll send questions of what we went over. Because we talked about before, a child gets in the car and says, I learned nothing. I'll say, we went over meeting and greeting. Here are some things to ask your child, and they can demonstrate to you how to shake hands or whatever it is. So we try to give the parents prompts so that they can get their child to talk about what they did learn.
I love that. I love that. Okay. So, this is, yeah. I mean, we could probably talk all day about this. Just going back to kids, like what's the one manners lesson that parents skip that's screwing all of us up?
I think parents just aren't telling their child no, and it's sort of a discipline thing, which is really bad, the way that they let their children speak to them. So I'll have parents picking their kids up from a class, and the kid will mouth off, and I'll say, excuse me, we do not speak to your mother like that. And the parent usually looks in shock and says, thank you for saying that. And I think, well, why aren't you saying that? So also, I guess there's a difference between behavior and manners, and a lot of people will send their kids to our week-long camps in the summer. And I think, okay, this is beyond help. You need to do something at home. I can teach them how to set the table, and I send a cute little placemat, with where all the things go. But if they're not getting disciplined, if you're not spending time with them, those are things that I cannot fix.
Interesting. Now, what do you think? Okay, This sounds fun. I'm really interested in this one. What is the most outdated etiquette rule that we're just better off ditching for good?
Okay, well, one that I've never agreed with, and this sounds a little extreme. Apparently, you can say to someone, thank you for a gift, and not write them a thank you note. If you say thank you, I think you should write them a thank you note.
Okay.
I wouldn't think of anything that I think is really that outdated.
You don't think there's any weird, outrageous etiquette rules that...
Not that I can think
Okay.
of off the top of my head.
If you think of one,
I
if
will
you think of
let
one,
you
you've got to
know.
let me know.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. What is the one thing that people do in public that instantly outs them as etiquette newbies?
Is etiquette newbies, meaning they have no clue at all?
Or they're just getting started
they're
with
just
this.
getting
Yeah.
started. That's a tough one, too. I don't know what I would say on that one. I just think that anyone who's interested in doing the right thing, that's great. I've never seen anyone overdo it, but that's just because I'm in that business, and I think that it's really nice.
We were discussing this. Isaiah, what was the buttoning of your jacket that gave you away?
Yes, I think that's a thing.
In my start of my young career, I had a meeting and I didn't button up my jacket when I stood up, and he grilled me for it. And ever since then, I button up my jacket when I stand up, and when I'm sitting down, I unbutton my blazer as well.
That's great. That's good, though. So my son got called out. So my husband is in finance, and my son had an interview with someone, and he called the guy and just said, okay, give me some honest feedback. Collar stays. And we've told our kids, you know what a collar stay is?
Oh, yes, they're all over my house. Yeah.
Yes, collar stays. We always thought you have to have collar stays. My husband, I think young in his career, was called out on that.
For not having them?
For not having them. He keeps them in his drawer at work. It's just things like that. You're going to have people my age or older who will call you out on it.
Well, good for you. I'm glad people are bringing attention to it. Yeah.
I personally don't think that you should do that to someone. But in that situation, I think this gentleman was trying to help you out.
I will say I've gotten several compliments on me doing that
See?
ever since that's happened. So
I love it.
Yep.
That's great. I love it.
Okay. A young person is at a fancy dinner with billionaires. What's the one tip you'd whisper to survive the night?
Okay, first of all, billionaires, just because they're billionaires doesn't mean that they know any manners. I've learned that a lot of CEOs that I'm friends with, they have no idea what they're doing. But let's say that it was a formal dinner and people did know what they were doing. Start on the outside and work your way in. And try to find someone that you think knows that they're doing the right thing, such as the host or hostess, and just follow their lead.
Oh, that's a great tip. Yeah. Yeah. And that goes for really any situation. I mean, you might feel like a fish out of water when you go on your first big business dinner. And I remember, looking at a lot of people at the C-suite when I first worked at a big advertising agency, and I was like, I'm just going to follow with that person.
Yes.
Over there. I'm going to order the wine he orders. I'm going to until I really have a great understanding of some of those things. And we're not always going to be perfect all the time, but I remember I'm going to pick out the one leader in this group that I think is doing this right and do it. And that helped me survive. So that's a great tip.
Yeah. And also I always say you follow the hostess. I mean, the hostess is everything. When the hostess sits down, you sit down. When the hostess starts eating, you start eating. So always look to them.
I love that. Do you give courses on ordering and appropriate ways to order meals, wine? Like, do you give courses on that for adults?
Yes, I've done that for young adults. Yes, I've had corporations hire me. So it was a company that they had young staff, newly graduates, who would travel and talk to very wealthy people.
Yeah.
And so I would talk about things, wine to order, how much to, if they have a drink, then you can have another drink, but be careful. You don't want to drink too much. They might be testing you. You just don't know.
Yeah. Well, I had a situation like that one time. I was at a big donor dinner one time, and it was me and one other woman at the table. Everybody else were, the men donors. And she looked at me when the waiter came over and said, Amy, how about you order for the entire table? And I was like, this is a very interesting, it's a very interesting question. I was like, is this everything going through my head? Is this a power move? Is this like, or is she testing me to see if I'm confident enough to, and I'm like, do I get 2 vegetables, the meat? You know, we were working on the starters, and I'm like, man, she threw me into the, into the fire.
I think she should have given you some warning.
Totally, 100%. But I would have sure loved to know, okay, you know, do you go with the dairy option and the dairy-free option and a gluten-free option in case people are dairy and gluten-free?
Right.
You know, all these things that are...
It's a lot to think about.
It's a lot to think about, but surely there is an appropriate way to manage that situation.
Yes. And I'd say if it's a dinner like that, these days it's great. Usually can look online and see what the menu is ahead of time, what the wine is.
But that was one of those situations I would have never thought to prepare.
You couldn't have.
To be ready for that situation. So,
yeah, I don't think she should have done that. So.
Yeah, it was very interesting. All right, since this is your world, this one's kind of fun. If there is one celebrity that you could retrain in manners, who would it be, and what's their first lesson?
Oh gosh. Okay, I'd say, not to sound old, Madonna. I think she needs a lot of manners.
Okay.
She really does. The way she speaks, the way she carries herself. I know that her value of entertainment is to shock people, but sometimes let's just really give it a think before we offend so many people. It just, especially with religion, I just think everyone should be so respectful of other people's religions that she clearly was not even respectful of what was supposed to be her own religion.
Respect. That's a great start. Yeah.
Yes.
Just taking respect and respecting people. I think that is wonderful. This has been so much fun. Now I'd like to do a quick rapid fire with you to answer quick answers as fast as you can. What is the worst table habit?
Licking your fingers. Oh, that's so
What
bad.
if you're at barbecue and you're...
Don't care. Do not lick your fingers. I think it's bad.
How do you eat a barbecue rib? This is not on my rapid fire.
Well,
with the fork or with your fingers?
I mean, you're allowed to do it with your fingers. I, of course, use a fork and knife because I don't like to be that messy. But find a napkin. Find a wet nap. Do not
probably
lick
shouldn't
your
floss
fingers.
after. If you
And
do eat it off the bone, you should probably not floss at the table.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that.
What would you say is one word for politeness?
Just being kind. I just think that people, even to their own spouses, to their own families, they forget that being polite really is being kind. You could have all the formal manners that you want in the world, but if you're not a good person and a kind person, what's the point?
Well, this is your turn to plug everything that you're doing. Where can people find you? Where can they join these classes if they want to get on, get in on all of this? Just go ahead and let everybody know where they can find you.
So mrsmcveigh.com, easy to find. Also Instagram, Mrs. McVeigh's Manners, pretty easy. And I post on there when we're having classes, what they are. And if you go to my website, it'll even say, you can have a private class. You can just email us and we do group lessons, Young Men's Service League, National Charity League, which are popular around here. We do etiquette dinners. We travel to different places, sororities, fraternities.
And custom courses apparently too.
Yes, because a lot of people need unusual things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Elise, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks.
And everyone, please go and give her a follow. Check out all of these courses. I know myself, I can't wait to get you plugged in with my little kiddos on all of this. But Elise just gave us the cheat codes to class. You can catch the full episode to stop embarrassing yourself without even knowing it. Thanks, Elise.
Thank you.